everybody, welcome back, and today we have another tutorial slash review slash 2 looks 1 palette on the new Melt Blueprint palette. Now, Melt is on the list of brands I wanted to try this year. Also in the same order, I also ordered the Vita palette, which I haven't dug into yet, but I have played around with this palette and I do have some thoughts I want to share with you. I've done a couple of looks using just the blues and just the neutrals in here. Now these looks are essentially the same. I created them the same way, so I kind of just did quick little run-throughs with them. If you want to see a more in detail cut crease, half cut crease type of tutorial, I will link my Certify tutorial, Dynasty palette tutorial up above, because I really kind of broke it down how I create a half cut crease if you are like me and you have hooded eyes or wrinkly eyes or texture on the eyes. I'm getting a lot better at it, I feel like. It's getting more consistent, but if you want to see kind of how my technique for doing that, I will link that video up above. But if you want to see the looks I created with the Blueprint palette, as well as hear my thoughts and see some swatches, then stick around. right, everybody, so those were the 2 looks I created with this palette. Again, essentially the same. I used the colors in the same type of way. I just wanted to get them on my eyes and kind of see how they worked and just form some thoughts with on this formula, on this brand, just because I've never experienced it before. So first of all, let's go into some swatches and just kind of the breakdown of the palette. So first of all, you have 2 mattes in this palette. You have Dim Out and you have Hammered, which are these, to the touch, these mattes do not feel very soft. They feel a little gritty, but good Lord, these mattes are insane. They're beautifully pigmented, intense pigmentation. They blended out great for me. They didn't blend away, and I was able to essentially use both of these. I did bring in a little bit of help from just my individual shadows. I brought in Creme Brulee mainly from Makeup Geek, but essentially I can blend these out enough to where they can give me a nice transition, and I just need to bring in a little brow bone shade just to tone it down. So as intense and intimidating as these mattes are, they really are quite versatile because you can get full on pigmentation. I've never seen a blue swatch like that, by the way, period, ever. Insane. So as intense and intimidating as they are, they can be sheared out with the right brush. I am always 100% going to recommend this little $1 e.l.f. fluffy brush. It's super soft. It is perfect for shearing out more intense shadows. It is my go-to initial transition brush. Love that thing. So that kind of brush would be perfect to shear these out. And then with a more dense brush like an E35 or an E25, you can really get that intensity of color while still blending it out. And it's just, I think the mattes are my favorite part of this palette. So if these mattes are consistent throughout Melt's palettes, then I would buy palettes just for those mattes because they are crazy good. Now, let's talk about the shimmers. The shimmers are really pretty. They are extremely flaky, extremely messy, and I feel like they are best used by wetting down your brush and applying the shades with like a flat shader brush. Again, I just use my Mash flat shader brushes. These work best for me. I spray them down with Fix Plus, my Photo Finish Primer water, but this kind of brush is going to be something thin and flat that you can really pack on that eyeshadow. I didn't try it with my fingers just because I've got big old sausage fingers and it's not conducive to getting the shadow where I want it on my eye. So that's the kind of brush I use. Now, while I didn't have any fallout, I wouldn't say hardly at all with the mattes, there was a whole bunch with these shimmer shades. So these shimmer shades are not the most buttery and creamy and just crazy intense in your face payoff. And I do find if you are of a certain age, in order to build them up to the blend and the intensity that I want, you are going to get a little bit of texture on your eye. Now, looking at my eye, it doesn't bother me. But then again, I'm not somebody who sees a whole bunch of texture and like freaks out about it. That's just where I am in life. So I just, it doesn't bother me. But if that's something that bothers you, just be aware. Now, can you get pretty looks with these shadows? And are they pretty impactful on the eye once you get them where you want them? Yes. I would say yes. I would say these shadows are probably more beneficial in a more structured type of look like the one I have now, rather than just throwing them on your eye and creating a soft look. I don't know. That's just kind of the vibe I get from this palette. The colors in here are beautiful. So let's go ahead and swatch these. So the first one is Skylight. And again, extremely flaky. This one is Deadbolt. And then the darkest one in here is called King Stud. So again, they're beautiful shadows. They swatch really well. The Skylight shade probably is the least impressive in swatches, and it was the one that needed the most help in terms of wetting my brush down. So, King Stud and Dim Out are really beautiful, but again, I really feel like all of these benefit immensely from applying them wet, maybe applying them over a glitter glue, maybe applying them with your fingers, just something that is going to give them as much of a boost as possible. Just because the nature of the shadow is flaky, it's crumbly, there's going to be a lot of fallout. It's just overall going to help you to give it that little bit of help. As far in terms of the gradient of the shadows, I was almost, when I was looking at this palette, I was almost disappointed that there wasn't a lighter matte. Now, because this matte blends out so beautifully, I didn't feel like I was missing anything in terms of these shadows, and I feel like the gradient from King Stud to Deadbolt to Skylight is beautiful and lends itself beautifully to a look using all three of them, or, you know, maybe one or two. It just gives you a nice gradient and a nice range of colors in terms of blues on the blue side of this palette. So talking about the brown side of the palette, again, I would say the same for these shades. And I've got to say, by the way, the blue stained my brushes. I've cleaned them twice since I've used them, and it's the blue's still on there, and they're going to stain your fingers and they're going to stain your eyes. So just be careful, you know, use a pretty substantial base before putting those on your eyes, unless staining just doesn't bother you, because those shades they're pretty intense. So moving on to the brown side of the palette. So again, at first I was a little concerned that there was not a lighter brown matte in here. But again, because this matte blends out so beautifully and can kind of create a transitional color for you, because most of this is this hammered shade. So, and again, I did tone it down a little bit with Creme Brulee, but most of that is that hammered shade. My one concern in here is that I feel like these two, for my purposes, and this is just personal preference, but I wish there had almost been a deeper brown shimmer in here, kind of like how you have Dim Out is the deepest shade, then King Stud is slightly lighter, and then you progress to Deadbolt and Skylight. I really feel like Hotwire and Nailed are kind of the same tone. Hotwire's a little bit deeper, but I prefer this shade to Nailed. I almost wish there was a deeper brown shimmer in here, but these shades are really beautiful. So you do have Beaming, and then Hotwire, and then Nailed. So they are, again, they're really beautiful shades, just not quite, for my purposes and the way I like to do eyeshadows, the gradient that I enjoy. I will say Beaming is probably the one that needs the most help out of this side, but once you give it a little bit help, put it over a concealer or a white base, it is going to show up a lot better. So the reflectiveness of these are definitely more intense than the blue side. So on the blue side, I tend to like the gradient of colors a little bit better, and then on the brown side, they're just not quite my preference, but they're beautiful shades and they're gorgeous on the eye. And I definitely made it work for what I wanted today just by blending the shades together and over on top of each other. So I did Hotwire on the kind of middle portion of my lid, blended into Hammered, and then blended Nailed on top of it, and then blended Beaming over that and into the inner corner. And it gave me the gradient that I wanted. It just wasn't like quite as instantaneous. So just be aware, if you don't like to layer shadows, or if, you know, you want something a little bit more similar to the blue side, that's kind of lacking in the brown side. But I do feel like these shimmers, these two deeper shimmers, are more intense and reflective than these shimmers. Again, the two lightest shimmers on either side are going to need the most help. But once they're on the eye, they are really pretty. But these mattes I'm absolutely in love with. Again, here are the swatches. So those lighter two are a little bit hard to see, but those mattes are just incredible. Like those mattes, and then these two right here, these kind of more neutrally shimmer shades, are probably my favorite in the palette. So let's talk about the price on it. So price point is $48. Now the packaging's beautiful. It's weighted. I love the packaging for this. It's got a nice mirror in there, so that's definitely a plus. And you're getting a lot of product in here, but for $8 eyeshadows, I feel like that's, you know, and for some shimmers that don't necessarily knock my socks off, I feel like this palette is slightly overpriced. I feel like, you know, maybe more along the $40 range would be more appropriate. Again, love the mattes. I love the shimmers once they're on the eye, but they're just you're gonna have to, you know, help them along a little bit. So just keep that in mind if you're somebody who doesn't want to have to deal with extra steps to make shimmers work. Keep that in mind. If you're somebody who really likes mattes, you're only getting 2 in here. If you're somebody who is not really big on uber pigmentation, again, these are very intensely pigmented mattes. So just some points I wanted to make. Overall, I really like this palette. It's not my favorite. I'm not, you know, my jaw's not on the floor, but I do like it. I really like the looks that I created with it. So even though it's a little bit more high maintenance, I think, and I did have to bring in some other shadows, I think I created some really pretty looks with it that I'm really liking. And I could see myself traveling with this palette because not only could I get some more structured looks like this, I could very easily just do a one shadow smoky look with these mattes, just do a plain matte smoky look, throw it all over the eyes, make it very simple. I could definitely do just kind of do very lightly apply this and put one of these shadows on the lid, and I think that would be a very beautiful, just kind of easy everyday look. So I have a lot of versatility, you know, just in terms of how I use my eyeshadows. This palette would offer me some versatility, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the, you know, maybe not, even though it wasn't the easiest to work with, I'm enjoying the end result. So that being said, those are my thoughts on the Melt Blueprint palette. I hope you enjoyed the tutorials. I hope this review was helpful for you and gave you some good information. Let me know, what's your favorite Melt palette? Have you not tried the brand? Are you interested in trying the brand? I have the Vita palette as well. I know that one's kind of old news, but let me know if you want to see a tutorial with that one. I'm happy to do that. I'm definitely excited to play with that one because the colors in that one are nuts, and there's more mattes in that one because the mattes in here are stellar as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I hope this was fun for you guys. As always, thank you so much for hanging out and talking about makeup with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Have a rockin' week, and I will see you next time. Bye.